What's up, everybody? It's Frontrunner Podcast Collective. We are talking about all the free agent happenings that are going on. We got a little bit of breaking news, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's get to the rundown. LeBron James told the Lakers he's out. He ended a 8-year marriage with a group text energy that is still has their 3 franchises pretending that they didn't see it. So now he left his son in Los Angeles, so there's that. Kawhi Leonard is also on the move, but it's kind of a back to the future situation, and we'll get into that later. And then we just have basically a cornucopia of moves that have happened. But the one thing that we want to talk about, and we're going to get into it momentarily, is the breaking news of Jalen Brown getting traded. And it was so interesting where he got traded to and what he got traded to for. So that will be the first topic that we go ahead and hit. But as far as free agency as a whole, we have some hits and some misses that we'll get to. And I can't wait to talk about them. And what do you do when your guard room, your lead ball handlers, you have too many of them? And we'll get to that story a little bit later. But before we do all of that, here's the one thing about NBA free agency that nobody says out loud. It doesn't move like a river. It moves like a heart monitor. You get 48 hours of pure, unadulterated, just move after move, but it doesn't come out just like that. It comes out in a way where it's drips, drabs, and what have you, and then there's a deluge of information and moves that happen. Now, with that being said, what goes on from there is then you're left in the rubble of what has just happened. And that's what we'll get to momentarily. You are locked in with FRPC. Let's get into it. What's good, everybody, and welcome to Frontrunner Podcast Collective. This is where we talk like friends, we argue like cousins, and we still walk out smarter than we came in. I am Vince, your host, occasional hoop therapist, and absolute favorite bad influence when it comes to completely reckless NBA overreactions that low-key make perfect sense. We are setting the table. We get into the film room observations. We have grown conversations about players, coaches, front offices, and actually what is moving the needle in the NBA. We talk about the contracts, we talk about the locker room rumors, and also the PR spin from those lovely PR people in the offices of these franchises. So, we also like to make sure that we get these jokes off, along with the advanced math and the exact barbershop ammo that you need to take straight to your group chat and completely nuke the argument. If you are an NBA sicko who wants more than a highlight talk, and you want context and numbers and a point of view, then this is your spot. This is FRPC, and let's go. I told you we had something big. We had something marinating, and we're going to talk about it right now. Jalen Brown has been traded to the Philadelphia 76ers of all places. And you ask, well, Vince, what did they get? And I know if you're a sicko, you got your Shams notifications on and what have you. But Paul George coming to the Celtics. And I'm going to say this right now. This only makes sense if Boston decided that he was unmanageable, meaning Jalen Brown. 10 years, 5 All-Star games, a Finals MVP, also a Eastern Conference MVP, and also a year where you didn't have Jason Tatum. You know, that's a very important situation. We went into last year thinking that the Celtics were going to suck. We thought this was a gap year. We thought maybe they would play themselves into the lottery. And Jalen Brown and Joe Mazzulla were not having this whatsoever. Jalen Brown played like an absolute man. He held that team together along with his teammates. Give credit to where credit is due. Peyton Pritchard had great games and they got great production from their bench and what have you. But Jalen Brown was the head of the snake and he held that team together. So the Celtics and their front office, head by Brad Stevens, had decided that Jalen Brown's attitude going forward was probably going to be an issue, and they weren't willing to manage it anymore. And because of the pure roster construction, this trade doesn't even add up any other way. So here's the trade, and you tell me. This is what Boston receives. They receive Paul George, a 2028 first round pick, to convert to a Boston favorable swap, 2031 unprotected Philadelphia first round pick, a 2028 second round pick, most favorable of Golden State, Oklahoma City, and Milwaukee, and a 2030 second round pick, most favorable of Washington, Portland, and Phoenix. And what does Philadelphia receive? Jalen Brown. Coming off his best statistical season of his career, and also Jalen Brown's personal favorite year that he has ever had, he felt that this was his most favorite season because of the fact that he can just go crazy with the ball. So Boston spent most of June trying to send Brown to Milwaukee, as we know, part of the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. When Giannis and Milwaukee brass chose to go to Miami and what they were giving back, Boston didn't scrap the plan of trading Jalen Brown. They just found a different taker. As a couple of the talent evaluators and scouts in the league has said, you run this through a real evaluation and the tension is exactly where it should be, between an elite talent and character red flags, and that tension is the story. After Boston, the first round elimination, Brown vented on Twitch that the league had an agenda against him, and more tellingly, called this disappointing. The Tatumless season, his favorite year, which we know that's something that came out of that, and we had weeks upon weeks of talking about it. I wish I was here for that. I wish I was present for that. I would have got jokes off on the regular on that. Now his Celtic career is over. And over the thing that I loved about his statement, and this is where everybody came together on. You're telling me you like this particular season, the one where Tatum wasn't there, over your actual championship season. And to me, I think that was the red flag that Brad Stevens could not choke down anymore. I think that was really the end. That was the beginning of the end, but I think that was the final nail in the coffin. So, does he have an issue with coachability? Not really. Is it his talent? No. It doesn't cancel his production, but it's exactly the kind of signal that shows up in files right before the front office moves on from a player. It still values on the court. The Brown situation, he was being shocked in Giannis talks in June. It wasn't invisible to him. The player of Brown's caliber knows when he's being used as a base package in a star swap. That message, a trade will trade you for the right star, and once a locker room hears that, going back to business as usual is rarely clean, especially in the with the information that was out there that Jalen Brown had put out. The organization likely got its answer about going forward with the relationship well before the Philadelphia call came in. And with this being said, this is a real open question. He didn't escape the co-star situation. He walked into one that's arguably shakier than the one he left. Embiid's health, right? And his unreliable years of service to the Philadelphia 76ers. The ascension of Tyrese Maxey, who's a ball-dominant lead guard who needs touches to be effective. If anything, Brown may have ended up playing the exact role he played in Boston. The guy who had to carry the operation when he with higher usage co-star is out. Except now with a franchise that has a center whose health is even less certain than Tatum's recovery time turned out to be. And if Brown wanted to be the guy, unambiguously, this isn't obviously that. Now, let's get into the numbers. This is what Philadelphia is getting, okay? And I think Philadelphia fans are going to be really excited. I think they know who they're getting in our guy Jalen Brown, but let's give it to you straight. 28.7 points a game. Damn near 7 rebounds a game and 5 assists. He was all NBA second team. Some people would tell you that he should have been all NBA first team for the season that he put up, with Tatum not being there for most of the season and the Celtics winning 56 games. So, that is the Jalen Brown side of the ledger. Let's go to the Boston side of the ledger. Who are they getting? Well, they're getting Paul George. And if you want to base it on the 37 games that he played, 17.3 points a game, 5.3 rebounds, and 3.6 assists over a 37-game period. Now, was he limited by his knee surgery? Yes, he is. Did he have a 25-game suspension of testing positive for PEDs? He sure did. So, why is this where we are? Put those two stat lines next to one another, and then you take into consideration Paul George's age. What doesn't add up? Why is this? If he was in a deal for Giannis, right? If Jalen Brown was in that deal, you're telling me that you couldn't extract more from Portland, who was also after him, where he probably would have ended up being the guy there. I love Deni Avdija. I love his ascension in Portland. I'm actually happy for Deni Avdija that he now doesn't have to go through this. But if you wanted to trade him to a place where maybe you can extract more compensation, as in actual on-the-court talent, and maybe a little more draft capital, maybe, Portland was a fine choice. Could you have traded him to Atlanta, where his hometown is? Now, Quinn Snyder and the crew run it down there. They have a guy by the name of Jalen Johnson who's also ascending to stardom. We saw what Nickeil Alexander-Walker did down there last year. It was amazing. That guy has just come of age in the last couple years. I mean, I did not see this offensive production coming from Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but it has happened. Now, could you have made maybe a 3-team trade where maybe Jalen Brown is going somewhere else, and then you get New Orleans involved and Trey Murphy III is moved? I don't know. Quite possibly you could have, but you didn't. At the end of the day, that is not what actually happened. And now we're here with this. And the Brown exodus only makes sense if you believe his makeup going forward had become genuinely unattainable to this front office, and that the one's lens through which any of this is defensible, but strip that away and you look at only what is on the paper as far as the stats are concerned. Boston traded somebody who is 5 years younger, right? who is coming off his best season that he has ever had. You could take it for whatever it's worth. This is the one thing I will say. Jalen Brown was the first name on the whiteboard, right? We can all agree to that Jalen Brown, when he came into a city or somebody came into his city, what they were trying to do was stop Jalen Brown. So, what did he do? Obviously, he scored 28 points a game. Now, again, you're trading him for somebody who is 35 years old, coming off knee surgery, which he's had multiple lower limb injuries previously. The PED matter, which is not a big deal. I don't even really care about that personally, but he did lose 25 games to that. And what the Celtics are left with is something that is suboptimal, period. This deal is not the best deal that they could have got. Or is it? Or is it? I find it hard to believe that an NBA team that is trying to get to that next level, you couldn't involve, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have sent him to Indiana. But you couldn't have involved Indiana into this. Phoenix is always looking for talent grab upgrades. There wasn't like a Jalen Green type of situation. Dillon Brooks brings some grittiness to the Boston Celtics and some size. The Clippers are adding pieces, and we'll get to them later. Golden State is looking for talent influxes. Now they're also on the hunt for LeBron James, and we'll get into that later. But I really believe that let's just talk about it, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But Kawhi got traded to Toronto, and with all his gone on with him in the last 6-7 years, to see him for the package he got, and we will talk about that. It really absolutely astonishes me the lack of assets that the Celtics got in the Jalen Brown trade. This is a whiff. This is the first time I can sit here and say that I don't get what Brad Stevens has done. Now, we'll talk about some of his pickups that he has picked up in this free agency, because he did pick up a big man. So there is that. But we have so much news to get to. That is the top of the thing. I wanted to get that breaking news out to you. Let me know how you guys think. Do you think with me and say, hey, you know what, Vince might be on to something with this deal about, there's no way he could have come back to Boston, because that package is nasty. That's all you got for him? How do Celtics fans feel about this right now? Boston, I want to hear you. I want to hear you from Brockton, from Sharon, from Canton, from Rentham to Hyde Park to, Dorchester to the Back Bay, out in Chelsea. What's up, Cambridge? I want to feel you. Danvers, how y'all doing? You know what I'm saying? Let me know. Braintree, where y'all at? Brookline, you know what's up. I want to hear from y'all. Let me know what you think about this trade. Did your front office, did Brad Stevens leave some meat on the bone according to you? Because to me, this smells of, we got desperate. Portland felt like they maybe were, you didn't have them on the vine, so to speak, as much as you might have thought of, and did just basically the music stop and there were no chairs left, and you took the Philadelphia deal. Hit us up on X at FrontrunnerPC, or you can hit the rest of the team up at socially_FRPC. I want to know your thoughts. So let's get into the rest of what has gone on. And we'll start here in LA. Because two monumental, transformative wings are gone from Los Angeles, and we start here. LeBron James has told the Lakers that he is no longer wanting to be a Laker. He is, at this point, this old news, but he is still unsigned. And his situation is that he is waiting for the teams to settle and then somebody to make his best offer as far as that's concerned. And then he will go ahead and then make his decision from there. Now, he left Los Angeles in a situation where the Lakers had to scramble a little bit, but we'll get to all of what they have done and maybe some thoughts behind what they've done a little bit later in this program. But it's not lost on me that LeBron left, and now you got teams vying for his services. Doesn't it feel like it's deja vu all over again? And at 41, with LeBron turning 42 years of age, this dude still moves the needle like this. I mean, can you believe it? Can you believe this dude is out here having teams clamor over him at this point in time in his career, his illustrious career? We will be checking our Twitter, and we will refresh that damn thing until that dude is finally settled in a city. Now we move across town, and Kawhi Leonard gets traded to the Toronto Raptors. In the trade, the Clippers receive Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a title reunion narrative with the Toronto Raptors that basically made the trade mechanics behind this, and basically the headline writes itself. So back to the future we go. Kawhi Leonard goes back to Toronto. Drake can be happy yet again and create singles because Kawhi's back in the 6, and we will see how that plays out. Now, this has been a off season of real change, and obviously we saw this coming, right? Paul George got traded last year. We saw James Harden get traded at the deadline this past season, and now Kawhi Leonard is now gone, and the Clippers have moved into a real youth movement. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing is this. Is it a downgrade from Kawhi to Brandon Ingram? No shade on Ingram, but yeah, this is a downgrade. The one thing that Brandon Ingram will frustrate your fan base by doing is that he is reluctant to take a bunch of threes. And I'm not saying you got to take 8 threes or anything like that a game, but we need you to take 5. And this is something that, other teams have asked of him. They couldn't get him to do it in New Orleans, and they damn sure couldn't get him to do it in Toronto, and spacing was an issue. Now with Darius Butler, oh my God, I called him Darius Butler. Darius Garland and Keaton Wagler, who's a rookie, and the rest of the crew with the Clippers, do you have enough around Brandon Ingram to allow him to continue his mid-range mastery? Or is this dude going to have to conform and hit some threes? You know what? The jury's still out on that. We will see. Trae Young resigns with the Wizards. He signs 4 years, $212 million, and we'll get into this later. The salary starts at $49.5 million, and it climbs up to $56.9 million, with a player option in 2029 and 2030. We will see how that works out. He's not the only one getting big deals. Austin Reeves, he hasn't signed it yet, but he has agreed to re-sign with the Lakers, and in that, he got a 4-year, $185 million contract, and we will talk about that later on. The only thing I will tell you is that Draymond Green told on his podcast, told Austin in no uncertain terms, that type of money puts huge expectations on you. You are now in the spotlight, you're in the limelight, and you're going to need to produce at a certain level and stay at a consistency level that you have never been asked to do. So, I guess the challenge for Austin this year is, hey man, can you average 24 points a game? Can you do that consistently? Can you also show up against some of the better opponents out there, which his numbers come down a little bit when we are talking about some of the best, teams out there. He had worse numbers against Oklahoma City, against San Antonio, against Boston and people like that. So we want to see real progress when it comes to Austin Reeves, and we will talk about his team a little bit later in this podcast. Now, Boston wasn't done with the trades and what have you, and making their team, reshaping their team. Mitchell Robinson signs a 3-year, $47 million contract with the Boston Celtics, leaving the New York Knicks, leaving Mr. Dolan, who said we are not going into the second apron. So, a rival plucking a rotation piece off the reigning champions is an automatic headline to fuel on its own. The Knicks can't match it without blowing past the second apron, which, like we said, James Dolan said we're not doing that. He's publicly come out and said that, and you don't ever say that before the parade, man. What are you doing? But that's James Dolan for you. He does what he wants to do. Boston gives one of the best rebounders, offensive rebounders in the league today. This dude is an absolute just glass eater when it comes to that. And he basically adds a little toughness to that front court that's been lacking that. Now, is he going to shoot? No. And Joe Mazzulla is reportedly a fan of Robinson for years because, Joe Mazzulla watches the town 4 times a week. He probably looks at Mitchell Robinson and goes, yep, that dude fits my mold of type of grit and toughness that I need. Now, here's the other thing with Mitchell Robinson that we all know. He does not shoot free throws. The hacker Rob will be on and crack-a-lacking in Boston. Okay? So, if you are a Boston Celtics fan right now, you lost Jalen Brown and you gained Mitchell Robinson, which, it's good in one way. It's bad in another. And who's the guy who's going to step up beside Jason Tatum? Now, you can tell me that you have expectations for Paul George, and that's cute. But really, at 35 years of age, with all the lower limb injuries, do you really believe that you can sit there and mandate that Paul George play like he did when he was in Indiana, Oklahoma City, or early years with the Clippers? Probably a big ask, especially now at 35. We move on because Oklahoma City obviously signed their dude, Hartenstein, to a 3-year, $75 million contract. So his money moves down a little bit, saves them money up against that cap because they're coming close to that second apron. And some of these deals got done before the even free agency started. CJ McCollum is re-signing. Kobe White is re-signing with the Hornets. And he was part of, obviously, the bigger story with, LaMelo Ball going to Minnesota. And now you got Kobe White, who's probably going to man the lead guard situation and get the ball to Con Knipple and also Brandon Miller in Charlotte. So I can't wait to see what that looks like. CJ McCollum had a great year in Atlanta. Once he got traded there, he showed up, he showed out. He had a couple great playoff performances before he got shut down by the Knicks. and they say, hey, we got to stop this dude. Now, Miami, who is just basically trying to puzzle piece this thing together after the Giannis deal, they picked up Tim Hardaway Jr. He signs with the Heat for a 1-year contract, $6.5 million. Our guy, THJ, shot 40.7% from 3 and was a 6th Man of the Year finalist last season. And Miami got him basically nothing right. They got him for nothing after the Giannis trade, and he will help the spacing that is going to be the issue in South Beach. Our boy Julian Champagnie got re-signed. He got re-signed for a 3-year deal. A little bit, $42 million. So that's about $14 million a year. Annual AAV. You know what I'm saying? Love that for him. And our guy, Jose Alvarado, gets to stay in New York. He will be donning the Puerto Rican parade for the next 3 years to come because he's going to be there. Bogdanovich signed with the Rockets, which we thought was kind of interesting because we thought Marcus Smart was going to sign first. He did not. But then Marcus Smart signed a little bit later. Something that was a heartbreak to Laker fans because of the fact that we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Kelly Oubre Jr. signs with the Pacers, 2 years, $16.5 million guaranteed. Indiana GM Chad Buchanan named wing depth as a priority before free agency even opened, then delivered exactly that, a 6'7", 6'8" wing who averages 14.1 points a game last season and gives Indiana instant bench scoring, real size on the perimeter, and the front office solving its own stated problem is rare enough to notice. The other big thing that came to San Antonio was Tobias Harris today. Tobias Harris signed a 2-year deal worth $31 million. San Antonio needed a 4. They needed a 4 who can stretch. They needed somebody who has size without sacrificing versatility. Tobias Harris does that. He's coming off a year where he averaged 18.1 points a game, 7.2 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. Now, in the playoffs, he was Detroit's number 2 option. He won't have to do that in San Antonio. He can go back down to like the 4th option in San Antonio because San Antonio got some dudes there. They are just loading up. And if we weren't scared of them last year, we damn sure going to be scared of them this year. He fits exactly, meaning Harris, he fits exactly and far less usage than he had with the Pistons. The timing is real. The value is real. This deal expires right as Steven Castle's max extension and Dylan Harper's eventual one kicks in, giving San Antonio size at the 4 with 0 long-term entanglement. Andrew Wiggins re-signed with the Heat. That was a critical piece as far as that's concerned because he's going to also help with the spacing and also keeps them long. Tim Hardaway Jr., 6'6", Andrew Wiggins, 6'7", long arms, and, he just fits that situation that you got going on in Miami. So defense is going to be definitely the priority in Miami. Stops is coming. So, with all that being said, we got some more stuff to get to. Right? And what I want to start doing now. Alright, so as a podcaster, you love these segments because this is the stuff that probably will get the group chats talking. And this is, what in the hell were they thinking? What? WTF? What were these front offices thinking? So, let's start with my favorite one. Ja Morant gets traded to the Trail Blazers. Now, put the actual depth part next to each other and listen to this. You got Ja Morant, you got Damian Lillard, you got Scoot Henderson, you got Drew Holiday, you got Shaedon Sharpe, You got Blake Wesley. You still got Veit Krejci. And you got two-way breakout star Caleb Love when everybody went down last year. These are all the names that are in Portland Trailblazers backcourt right now. That's not a backcourt. I mean, that's a cast of Love Island if you ask me. Everybody's coupled up with a title and nobody actually has an idea of what their role is. Portland won the trade, if you want to just say, hey, pure value, no picks, no expiring salary, and a former Rookie of the Year. But the building with this many bodies at one position only makes sense if there is a bridge to something else. And what I am thinking is this. This was the Jalen Brown trade. And for some reason, they couldn't come to some sort of agreement. Now, is there other stuff out there? Maybe. Maybe so. Maybe that will happen. But now that Jalen Brown has been traded, what happens now? Scoot Henderson is more likely to be the odd man out. That's what you might say. The former number 3 overall pick. He's going to get buried by all the depth pieces as far as that's concerned. You don't trade for John Morant and then let Scoot start. Is Drew Holiday out the door? Maybe so. But where do they go now that Boston has made this trade with Philadelphia? Who needs lead guards? Because again, Portland has way too many of them. I mean, you can tell me that Damian Lillard is going to come off the bench now at his advanced age and also having the Achilles tear from last year. I get it. But Holiday was their most consistent player, and he wants to stay. Plus, Portland's messaging says that he's not available, and we're taking a real skepticism and giving math doesn't work without someone leaving. So now, if I'm sitting there, and I'm Portland, and I got all these guards, who's going? Someone's got to go. And what are you getting back in return? Is this a play for Houston? Is there a Houston-Portland deal? I don't know. Does Milwaukee get involved? Do they have any... I mean, with the picks they got from Giannis, is there something that they can do? Can they kind of bank on a young guy? But they took Braden Burries with the first round in the first round. Now, as far as a lead guard is concerned, do you think Scoot is that guy? Maybe, maybe not. I'm sure they're not going to want a veteran like Drew Holiday, even though he would be returning to his likely spot where, you know, he served as a guy who really helped that team win. So with all that being said, you don't want the music to stop and then there's less chairs for all your guys, because there's no way that Portland can go into the regular season with this many guards stockpiled. No way. Now let's go on to the Washington Wizards. Now, Washington has had a pretty awesome offseason in one way. You know, you get AJ DeBansta, the fan base is very excited. You know, you pair him with all the other young talent you got, which is, you know, you're talking about Alex Sarr. You're talking about our guy Bilal Coulibaly. You're talking about also some of the young wings they had over there last year. And there's a lot to be invested in the district, right? But can somebody explain to me the Trae Young money? Can somebody give that to me and make me understand what's going on with this situation? $212 million, max money. Who was going to give that to him? Which other franchise said we would do this? I want somebody to put their hand up and figure that one out for me. Listen, Trae Young is going to be able to throw lobs to AD if he stays. If Alex Sarr's foot injury is, something where it's not too debilitating, and he's able to throw lobs to him, obviously the AJ DeBanster situation is going to be on. We can't wait to see that. But Trae Young being a ball dominant guard in the district might have some problems. And now with the contract like that, I will never say that a contract can't be traded. But that's going to be a difficult one to swallow if you got to. Our guy Yusuf Nurkic, and we should have known something. I knew something right then and there. When Yusuf Nurkic signed a 2-year, $22 million contract, I was like, I did the Windhorse fingers and went, why would Utah do this? Why? Right? And they did this because of the fact that, they lost somebody. And we'll get to that a little bit later. He came to the la, and we'll explain that. Now, with that, Nurkic, I don't know if he's going to start, but we shall see. Now, let me ask this question. With BJ Edgecombe there, Tyrese Maxey, does Jalen Brown go to the 3? And is Dean Wade, who they picked up for 4 years, $39 million, going to be playing the 4? A 36.7% career three-point shooter who's never played more than 63 games in a season is locked in for 4 years. That's a lot of term and decent amount of money for a replacement level defensive person who is also a streaky shooter. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna hold you. I like Dean Wade. I don't know if I would have gave him that kind of money. That's like almost $10 million. So, questionable. That's why we call this the what TF. Keon Ellis signs with the Nets for 2 years, $18 million. Now, listen, I think my guy Keon Ellis got a bad break in Cleveland. He was not even playable during the playoffs, and I was, not saddened by it, but I was like, man. Because when they made the trade to get him, I was like, oh, this is cool. Because they, now they can diversify. They can harden a little bit on the defensive side. Because you got this guy, you got a couple other dudes or whatever. Keon Ellis, I don't know where his shooting went, but it went just in the toilet. And he was unplayable in the playoffs. And, they start playing other people. And I'm not talking about Sam Morrell or my guy, Max Strus. No. I'm talking about other guards. Jalen Tyson got run. You know what I'm saying? They got a lot of dudes over there. And Keon Ellis is trying to revitalize his career. He's going to try to do it in Brooklyn. And God bless you, my brother. Because I don't know what your market is, and maybe this is the dollar amount, the most maximum dollar amount you could have got. But man, you got to go chill in Brooklyn. Now, in context, he's a 3-and-D piece. He's heading to a rebuilding team, so he can provide some of that veteran leadership that maybe you're probably not getting with Julius Randle if Julius Randle gets into his feelings. Right? When things don't go right for Julius, he has a tendency to pout. Okay? So keep that in mind. Brooklyn Nets fans, how many of them are out there? Now, I want to talk about the Kelly Oubre deal, not because it's a WTF situation, because I think that's a good pickup. My question is this. Is now Jarris Walker and Ben Shepherd, are they just lost causes now? Are we done with them in Indiana? Because I don't know what real roles they have there. They're both restricted free agents next summer. Walker's salary is $8.5 million, which is movable. If he wants to stay in Indiana, under the tax, is it worth tracking as a what does this mean for the kid's storyline? My favorite phrase of all time is developmental pathway. How much runway are these kids getting to be able to enhance and show their skills? But I'm going to tell you right now, you got a vote of non-confidence when you sign Kelly Oubre Jr. to what he signed, because he's getting minutes. He's getting minutes, and he's going to provide a place in that rotation. He's going to solidify his role. And we are going to see a different type of team for Indiana come next year. Now, guys, this. I have been a person that has kind of killed Rob Pelinka over the years. And when we got to this situation a little bit earlier today, I have to tell you, before everything started breaking loose, I've been on Twitter. The tweets are there. The receipts are there. I said, Rob Pelinka cannot have a whiff type of summer. He can't whiff this summer. Now, you guys are going to have to be the judge on what Rob has done in his balance of work that he's done. So we are going to get into the Lakers rebuilt their roster in 18 hours. But did they just trade away all their defense? So, let's start in Los Angeles. Let's go to crypto.com, basically. Let's kind of get in the headspace as Laker fans, as people who follow the Lakers. Because here's the one thing. I try to be more of a balanced analyst when it comes to this now. But I still have my fandom. LeBron James walking out the door was supposed to be the headline. Instead, it's the starting gun. In the span of a single free agency window, Rob Pelinka traded for a starting center and signed 3 rotation pieces and watched 3 rotation players walk out the door, including the one guy on the roster who actually guarded the ball. Now, and spent almost every first round asset that the franchise had left. The Lakers didn't rebuild around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. They sprinted. The question now is whether they sprinted in the right direction, or because of all the size and shooting added, nobody on this roster is a proven point of attack defender. And here's the full breakdown of what the Lakers have done. Let's talk about the new arrival, shall we? Walker Kessler, who is kind of the shiny object of this whole situation. The Lakers put a full court press on Utah. They've been on Walker Kessler for they've been wanting Walker Kessler for like 2 years. And he was sent to the Lakers via a sign and trade from Utah. He also picked up 4 years, $130 million. One of the best rim protectors of, I would say, of the young guys that are out there. Now, his 2024-2025 season alone, he produced 12.2 rebounds. He had an elite block rate of 21.9, total rebound percentage. Okay? He's a lob threat who can catch anything that Luka throws up there. The flip side is that he had shoulder surgery last year, which basically completely wiped out his 2025-2026 season. Now, there were reports that he probably could have came back last year, but obviously Utah was in that tank mode, and they ended up with Darren Peterson. I do not blame them. They had to do what they had to do because they had been on the top 5 outside looking in for a while, and they finally got a top 3 pick. And what do you know? The year that you had to get into the top 3 or 4 to get one of them money dudes, one of them maybe generational talents, Utah, the Jazz did it. Now, is he going to rebound at a high level? Probably. This is a bet on his all-rookie team ceiling and not the injury history. The one thing I will say about Walker Kessler is this, is that we are going to play a lot of drop coverage. This is a drop big. This is not a big that is going to be chasing wings, on the perimeter or anything like that. Okay? This is a drop big, so we're going to have to play drop big concepts. So get that one in your head as we start to look at some of these other players that they brought in. So Quentin Grimes was another person they brought in. They signed him basically to the mid-level exception. He signed a 4-year, $60 million contract, which is a $15 million AAV. Good chase defender. We don't know personally if he's a point of attack defender. He really never had to do it. He's a capable shooter. I wouldn't say he's a great shooter. He's a capable shooter, which he shoots anywhere between 33 to 38% from 3 across his stops in the NBA. Already has chemistry with Luka Doncic from their time together in Dallas. He can scale up or down as a starter or a 6-man. He is not, however, a true point of attack stopper on the wing. That's very important. Very important right there. We'll get back to this a little bit later. Let's get into the other guys they picked up. The Lakers also signed Sandro Mamukelashvili, ex-Raptor. They signed him to a 4-year, $52 million contract, which is $13 million AAV. Now, what you're getting with him is a stretch big, 11.2 points a game last season, 52% shooting, and 38.9% from 3 as a stretch 4 or 5, whatever you want to do. Now, is he a consummate pick and pop, space the floor next to Luka and Reeves so they can get into the paint and probe the paint? Absolutely. That is what he is. Now, is he a defensive answer? No, he is not. No, he's not. Is he okay on defense? I don't know. I want to say he is average. He might be a little bit below average when it comes to that. He doesn't have a lot of foot speed. Doesn't have a lot of agility when it comes to being able to chase people off that 3-point line. So we will see how this works out. But as far as a floor spacer, he can do that. And then they also pick up Colin Sexton of the Hornets and Bulls. He came into the room exception part of the money. Okay? 2 years, $19 million. Instant offense off the bench. 15.4 points a game, 3.3 assists. He's a microwave scorer, but he has minimal defensive upside. This is not your point of attack defender. But this is what you got, because here's the thing. This is the part where you should make you sit up. The Lakers entered the offseason with about, let's say, 5, well, really truly 2 picks they could trade and what have you. But I'll get how it all worked. In the Utah deal, they have unprotected first of 2031 and 2033. They have pick swaps in 2028 and 2030. I'm lost for words how many picks they gave up. Pelinka went all in, and the way Danny and Eric Ainge do their deals, they had to win. And Danny always does. Refusing to lose a trade on paper, paying a premium in the years and nobody thinking about it yet. But the practical effect is that Los Angeles has almost no draft capital left to fix anything else, and this front office discovers what is broken. So who walked out the door? Because this makes a huge deal about if something is amiss, how they going to fix it. Luke Kennard signed a 2-year deal for $13 million. Think about that. 2 years, $13 million. All right. Colin Sexton got 2 years, $19 million. He led the league in 3-point percentage this past season at 47.8. He was 44.8 after arriving in Los Angeles at the trade deadline as a complete floor spacer weapon as there is in the league. Here's the one thing I will say about Luke Kennard. I think that 47.8 3-point percentage is a little, you got to dive into the numbers a little bit. Because the one thing that we know about Luke Kennard is that he's a selective 3-point shooter. And I don't know whether he is afraid to let it fly a little bit more for the sake of his 3-point field goal percentage. But I will tell you that he was maddening here in Los Angeles. Shoot the 3 more. I'm sure JJ Redick was asking this dude, can you please be a little more aggressive with shooting a 3? And he did not. He's a dude that averages like 3.5 threes a game, which is crazy for the type of range and the type of accuracy that he has. It was absolutely it was just astonishing sometimes when he would not just let it fly. He was not the only one. Rui Hachimura looks like he's not coming back as of right now. There were reports that he was going to the Spurs. I don't know if he's going to the Spurs because now they got Tobias Harris. Maybe the Nets, or maybe he comes back. I don't know how they're going to come back because we got no money left. 0. No money left. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Rui, the one thing about Rui is that I loved his clutchness in the playoffs. Loved it. The problem is that Rui gets lost on defense. Now, did he play out of position with the Lakers more times than not? Yes, he did. With LeBron James man in the 4 position, with Luka Doncic's best probably position is the 4, and you can hide him on the worst, offensive threat. Rui was out here chasing like real wings, like KD. You know what I'm saying? Like he's out here chasing Kawhi Leonard. He's out here chasing Dylan Brooks or Devin Booker. Can't have that man doing that. Can't have that man doing that. That is not his bag. But that's what he was tasked to do. And also, for somebody as big as Rui is, he doesn't rebound as well as you might think. But I hate to see that dude gone. I hate to see it. Now, here's the piece that we couldn't lose. Marcus Smart declined his 5.4 player option and signed a 2-year deal with the Houston Rockets for $13 million. Now, he's playing in Houston. He's reunited with Ime Udoka. This is one of those actual breaks the roster type of situations. Smart was the Lakers' only real point of attack defender. He is a former defensive player of the year. And how many charges did that dude take as a Laker? A lot. Now, you can talk about his antics and hearing that, whatever you want. But the one thing that dude did provide was grittiness on defense. He did not just, he fought over screens. He was on his dude as much as he possibly could. And they stretched that dude as far as they could in a Laker uniform. He was the captain, really, of the defense. He would basically point out where you needed to be in your defensive position, in your sets. And then if you did not understand the principles of the defense that was being run at that particular time, he would tell you about it. He would coach you up. This dude was one of the best glue guys that the Lakers have had in a while. I would say since Alex Caruso. That's just my opinion. But you can say whatever you want. That dude walking out the door, and the numbers, here's the thing. He took 55 charges. Okay? 15 ahead of the second place person. Now, the numbers and the shooting and all that and everything, I'll grant you. You want to talk about, did we get better on offense? 100%. He scored only 9.3 points a game. He had 2.8 rebounds and on 3 assists. He shot 39.5% shooting. It undersells his value as a player because he wasn't there for his offense. He was there to guard the best perimeter scorer that the other team had to offer. And now that job is vacant. I saw this dude matched up with KD. I saw this dude matched up with a bunch of people. And he held it down. Where is the point of attack defender coming from? Well, if you want to talk about maybe the on the roster guy, well, you got Grimes is going to help, but he's a chase defender. Not the point of attack stopper that we need. Smart has left the building. Kennard was never going to be that guy. Right? Even though he's in Phoenix, he was never going to be that guy because he was not brought here for his defense. Rui, I told you he was lost on the perimeter. So, as much as I would love to have Rui back, on defense, he was not going to be able to help us. So, who do we have that might be able to take over this role? Now, these are long shots to be said always right now. Okay, this is long shots. We are talking Trevor Lane, rainbow, pie in the sky, put your purple and gold tinted lenses on when I say this. But Adu Thiero, who was last year's second round rookie, played only 6 minutes a game across 25 appearances as a rookie. He's still developing. Now in the G League, and take these numbers with a grain of salt, 16 and a half points a game, almost 6 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. He's a real two-way upside guy, but he's proven zero on the NBA level as far as defensive reps are concerned. We have not seen it. It is not because of the fact that, he just didn't get a lot of opportunities to do it. Let's just put it there. Now, the next guy who could possibly fill that role is our number 1 overall selection in our draft. He was the 24th pick overall. He was our first round pick, and that's Cameron Carr. Now, Cameron Carr, 3-and-D dude, if you want to call him that, he's going to have to grow into that. Now, here's the first thing that we do know. His 3-point percentage shouldn't be a problem as far as keeping himself on the floor. He shot at 37.5% basically. He profiles as a 3-and-D wing on paper. But obviously, until we see it in functionality, we cannot say that. He projects as a 3-and-D wing. He's quick. He understands that the defensive part of the game is his priority. He has to learn how they want to play defense, where they're going to set them up, what the principles are, and all of those things. We will see how that works. The other option is either keeping Vanderbilt and let him wreak havoc on tinier guards. He seems to be able to guard down. Now, he's lost some of his explosion pop in the last couple of years because of foot injuries and things of that nature. So if you wanted to, you could stretch and waive Jared Vanderbilt, and that'll give you like $7 million to play with, because they are up against the cap right now if they wanted to add somebody. And if you wanted to get somebody for maybe about $5 or $6 million, maybe you can do that. The other thing that you could do, which is now harder to do because I want to talk about this right now, is that you could trade DeAndre Ayton. But before we talk about that, Jackson Hayes signed a 2-year deal with the Utah Jazz per ESPN's Tim McMahon. Obviously, Hayes has been here since 2023. He is a guy who really connected with Luka, caught the lobs, did the dunks. He did guard on the perimeter, which was cool. He was also a weak side rim protector, but a true on-ball rim protector, he was not, because he was too light in the ass to do that. And now he's gone to Utah. So he is not even an option when you're talking about maybe trading DeAndre Ayton's $8.1 million contract, which also is an expiring contract, which makes it even more appetizing for a team. And we have a lot of teams out here that are starved for a center that can give this type of production, maybe off the bench. Ayton averaged 12.5 points a game, 8 rebounds, and 1 blocks. He played in a career high 72 games last year, and he would be one of the most movable value contracts that the Lakers have. And we are in a center star market right now. And people say, well, who's the team that doesn't have the pick? Right? And I'll give you that. Are we really sure that Yusuf Nurkic and Jackson Hayes are the answer in Utah? Because you can tell me that Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to play center, and I will tell you, just like Anthony Davis didn't want to play center here, Jaren Jackson Jr. doesn't want to have anything to do with playing center in the NBA, not for a long period of time, not for long stretches. Now, the Brooklyn Nets say that Daron Sharp is their center. Okay. He's been the bench dude. Nick Claxton has moved on to Chicago. You could tell me that situation. Okay. I think DeAndre Ayton might be a little bit better than Daron Sharp, but not, Mitchell Robinson is now gone in New York. $8.1 million option to back up Karl Anthony Towns and give them a little bit different type of situation than they had there. And you say, hey, man, come off the bench. We'll give you some, we'll let you get busy in that mid-range. You throw that little floater up there, whatever the case may be. All we're going to ask you to do is play hard. Right? You could tell me that Charlotte could use some help, even though they picked up a couple pieces. Now that Miami has who they have, they're good. You don't have to worry about them anymore. Where do we stand in New Orleans? I mean, I know Derek Queen is out there doing his thing, but he's more of a 4, not a 5. Now, his defense might tell you he has to play the 5, because he didn't show that last year. But maybe bringing a veteran in might be able to help that team. So there are a lot of options out there. I heard somebody say that there weren't a lot of places that needed centers, and I thought that was kind of, BS a little bit. You know who needs one? And they don't really trade with one another? The Clippers. Who's man in their middle at this point in time. So with that being said, DeAndre Ayton is the guy who we would be able to trade. But now, here's the thing. We can't, because we wouldn't have a center. So our one piece of tradable asset that we had, we can't trade. Now, unless you expand the trade, unless you sit there and say, okay, we'll also throw in Dalton Connect, who's you taking a flyer on a little bit. Can you get him back to his early part of his rookie season where he was dropping 30 on fools and stuff like that? Maybe. But it's not guaranteed, damn it. It's not guaranteed at all. So, we are stuck. And this is where I want to leave you. What does this mean for Pelinka, LeBron, and the Lakers itself? The Kessler, let me repeat that. The Kessler price tag is a story here as much as the player himself. Pelinka solved the 5 spot, and in the same move, spent the currency he need to solve anything else. That's either supreme conviction that this specific core, Luka, Reeves, and Kessler, are worth mortgaging into the 2030s for. Or is it a front office that won this individual trade on paper while leaving at least 2 roster needs the Lakers still haven't addressed? Both can be true at once. And that's the exact tension LeBron saw coming. And this is why his exit reads less like a basketball decision and more like a verdict on trust that had been eroding for years. LeBron being done with the Lakers and moving on signals a quiet but loud protest from a couple summers ago. Let me take you back. He gave Pelinka an out. I think you guys all remember this. LeBron was willing to forego the highest end of his compensation to add more talent to the roster. He has specific names that he named off. James Harden was one of them, Klay Thompson was another, and Jonas Valanciunas was another. It was a clear line in the sand. And the verdict, what LeBron thought of Pelinka's skills as a personnel evaluator, and his history hasn't been kind to that verdict either. But LeBron also has to own the fact that both he and Anthony Davis pushed Rob towards the Russell Westbrook swing which no Laker fan wants to revisit ever. They never want to talk about that. It was a poor fit from day one. Both megastar and the front office have had their personnel judgment questioned by an unrelenting fan base. And here's the other thing that I will say about that. It took years of patience. It took years of discipline for the Lakers to drag themselves out of that Russell Westbrook situation. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but when they traded Russ and they got D'Angelo Russell and Jared Vanderbilt and a couple other people as far as that's concerned, it really got them out of jail because it was a awful situation. The pieces weren't fitting together. Russ was unsatisfied, as well as LeBron and AD, and I'm sure it wasn't a good time in that locker room. So here's the question that I have for my Laker fans out there. Do I believe LeBron should have closed his career with the Lakers? Yes. Do I understand why Pelinka needed to retrofit the roster around Luka? Also, yes. Now, all of Purple and Gold waits for the next deal to drop. So let me know what you guys think. Hit us up at FrontrunnerPC, at FrontrunnerPC on X. Also at socially_FRPC on X. We'll also put up something on YouTube community page, and you can find us there at FRPC Vince. Go to the community page. I'll put something up in the next day or so. Probably a question about what you think of Pelinka's moves, what you think of LeBron leaving, and, y'all can go ham on that. Obviously, if something else breaks that is just jaw-dropping, we will give you an emergency pod. We will call it urgent pod or something. We'll call it something. That's what we'll do. But with that being said, FRPC is your spot. Do us a favor, share this episode with a person in your group chat or your friend group that needs to hear it most, because we want to touch all the basketball fans out there. Pull up on us on X and Instagram and subscribe wherever you get your pods, and let's keep building this thing together. Remember, that handle on X is at FrontrunnerPC. That's also the handle on Instagram. And remember, also, the YouTube page is FRPC Vince, and that'll get you our YouTube page. Now, before I get out of here, I want to say this. The best part of you is still you. Not your win-loss record, not your timeline, not your algorithm, just you. Surround yourself with people who actually give you light, and the ones that bring that insight to you, the joy, and real accountability. That's your max deal. Appreciate those out loud. And don't wait till later that anybody is not promised you. We're a hoop family. We're going to get loud. We're going to be wrong sometimes. But we're going to come back and own it. We will always respect your brain, because anybody can yell a take. Few can actually defend a thought. And until the next episode, keep your mind sharp, your heart open, and your circle tight. Protect your peace like cap space. Never waste it on bad basketball or bad energy. I'm Vince. This is FRPC, and we out. Deuces.